So how many groups have their trees done? Like they have a tree ready to go? Just one? So, 2, 3? Ready to go? You guys ready to go with tree? Yeah. Maybe it's like kind of a maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe in 5 minutes or so?
Yeah.
Okay, what about you all? You ready to go? Okay, let me erase this. And let me show you something here. So the best way to kind of think about how to draw your tree on the board is to start from the bottom. You know, you're going to basically just grab a pen of any kind, you know, preferably a dark pen. You know, you start from like the center dot of your thing, and then as you go, you're kind of treating these as branches. So, you know, you have a branch like this, and then a branch like this. And so, you know, when you draw your tree, we are looking at basically something like this. You should have branches that are either 2 branches or 3 branches off the same point. But I don't care about the distance of the lines. The really important thing to note here is we have these letters represent the species. Okay? And then these branches are really important. These are what are called nodes. And the nodes, basically, what they represent is a hypothetical common ancestor. So the kind of presumption here, or the inference, is that say for example, you know, this is just, I made this up, it's not what your tree is supposed to be, but species B and C have a more recent common ancestor than either of them have the species D. So species D had a common ancestor that essentially gave rise to B, C, and D. So we're kind of treating these as hypothetical, you know, species or organisms sometime in the past that had specific traits or features. And that's kind of the logic or the rationale behind all this. So again, what's important is that you draw your tree even bigger than this. I was remiss. Mine should have been larger. But we're going to go ahead and have space for 6 trees. I think this will probably take you 10 minutes to do, right? And go ahead and grab whatever pen you want, preferably kind of a darker color. I have black, I have brown, I have green, and go for it. So I'll come around and give you a hand, but we'll take about 10 minutes to go ahead and put these trees up. And then we'll talk about the species naming later. Okay, good?
Let's see.
Hey, yeah, if you have different trees at your table and you want to put both of them up, that's fine. But at least one.
I feel like I'm working. Yeah, let's ask him to pick out. Let's put all our papers in a circle. Put all our papers in a circle. Ask him which one is best.
That was good. That was, okay. So pick one.
He will. And then someday.
Okay, how's it going? You guys have trees put up there? That was good. Those all look good. You can't have connected dots. Well, last time we were saying that. Well, for one reason is because each species has a trait in and of itself that's unique to it. There's no way that
That one looks so much like a tree.
species have the same number of traits in common. So, for example,
She's doing it in brown.
which species is this B? B, and how many traits does B have? 9? So there's no way that, and then
Which guys?
A has 9, B has 10.
Wait, I actually have.
So there's no way that B can have 9 traits in common with A, because A has one that nothing else has, right? So if you follow the direction, like okay, A and B share 1, 2,
I don't know. I don't see any of those. None of them go off these letters that way.
7, 7, 6. So A and B share 7 traits. That means 1, 2, 3, 4.
It has a
5,
root system and everything.
That means A and B do things like that. Right? That's how that works.
Mine is like, I don't know if mine's right though. Mine feels like I have too much going on from like.
1 divergence, 2 divergence.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. Like,
if we're
you
looking
said
at how many
something about
divergences they have in common,
the letters were
A and
on
B
the
only
same
had 7
line,
in
like
common,
you choose one.
even though they're at rank 9
Yeah.
and 10.
But I don't know.
But I kept having to go to different ones.
So that's how that works.
Yeah.
Okay, how's it going? Looking good?
We wanted you to pick one for us.
Either pick one, or you can put 2 up there if you want. Whatever you want to do. That's all.
Which one do you think was the prettiest?
I think they all look great. Yeah, you guys pick. Rochambeau, you know.
So, is
Rochambeau, like what? Rochambeau, right?
I have a question
Rock, paper,
though
scissors.
about if we have some species that are tied for divergence. Like, were we supposed to have a line for every single letter?
There's supposed to be a line to every species.
Every single
So
line.
you just don't like that one?
Well, no, because I misunderstood when you said if they tie, choose the one with like less divergence. But I didn't.
No, if they tie, okay, so if it's a tie, then you have to make a choice. But you know, if you're on the same ring, that doesn't mean you're tied. It just means you just pick one and pick it. So what does G and A have in common? So what you do there is go to your list. Let me see your list here real quick. Since yours is exposed. So G and A, how many times did G and A come together? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mine might be a little better.
5, 6. So in her list, there's 6 times G and A come out in common. So I would go G and A should be connected at ring 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That would mean I would take G and connect it to ring 6. To A.
So since yours it's 4.
G and A are at 4.
Okay, so yeah, they'll be the same kind of idea. So then you'd find out. This is a nice matrix. Then you'd find out who does A have most in common with? Oh, B. So A and B should be. I mean, A and B have 7 things in common. A and B should be like linked right there.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's the more in common is where you link them. So A and B should be kind of like cousins. You know?
I usually die.
That's cool. I like it. You got the Fibonacci thing going on. You got some Fibonacci happening. Doesn't matter. Just go ahead and put it up there,
Yeah, we got her up.
and we'll.
Oh yeah, she's going. We were just like,
We'll,
oh, your tree looks good.
we'll worry about it later.
Yep.
It's not about being right, it's about being well supported.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
No, I got
I
you.
didn't understand it, so I just wanted to.
No, but now you got it though. And that's a cool matrix idea. I wasn't gonna make people do that because usually people will start crying and
Yeah, I couldn't. Like, I was trying to just list them out, but
How many people have you had crying in this class?
Oh, I've never had anyone cry this I know of.
I could be the first. We could change that. Yeah, I think we will. I think we're all gonna change that this year.
Yeah, English is looking pretty good.
We'll go down in the history book.
Change the major art.
Art.
All right. My dad was an art major. So, you know, how do you rebel against a parent who's an artist?
What does he do?
He taught art at Napa Community College. So he was a college professor too.
Do you like teaching college?
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, I have a blast. I have the most fun in here.
He doesn't sound very convincing.
That's the most important.
He just says, yeah, totally. I've had a blast.
Yeah. All right. So how's it going? Did you guys? Is there?
He does not sound very convincing.
1 second.
because he likes to see us.
Cool. Okay, this is not long.
Well, Riley, you might be the first person to Oh, I already have. Just off camera. We met. Do you know many dissections we have to do? Like 7. That's like probably like 5. Yeah, we have to do like 7.
I don't know about y'all, but I'm excited for that.
I was gonna say I'll be there.
I'm just gonna be like,
I'm excited.
I'm gonna be taking if it's a frog, I'm not touching it. I hate
I'm
frogs.
gonna do a rat and a shark. Those are my 2 favorites.
I'm scared of rats. I'm not rats. I'm
excited
scared
for
of
those
frogs.
too. Although
do a-
earthworm does sound pretty
What is
fun.
a nematoma?
The earthworm does sound.
I don't know.
I hope not a
It
frog.
sounds like a.
Nematode.
Oh,
Oh yeah, nematode. They're like
It sounds
nematode.
familiar.
they're like little like sea.
I hope not.
Sea creatures?
Yeah.
Brown worms.
So
I don't know, my
tiny, aren't they? Like.
Yeah.
worm?
Yeah.
Sounds like a toad.
So we get to do several types of worms.
Yeah.
Excitement.
Love worms. Clam and squid.
I have
Yeah.
one random Thursday in the middle of November
Shark
that I
Night
have a
is
trip
fish
with
night. Oh, there is gonna be a frog.
another class.
Oh no. There's gonna be a shark, a fish, a frog, and a rat.
I hate frogs.
Frogs scare me. They're like they hip and hop, and they're just like scary.
Hip and hop.
I'm just saying they're scary. Our dissection's mandatory because I might be sick that day.
Why did they sit
Sitting there crying.
Well, I guess the good thing for you is if the hip and hopping is the scary part is that
At least it won't happen.
Yeah.
It's just ugly too. Toads are also ugly. I have too many of them in my backyard. Everything else, like almost everything else I'm fine with. Like snakes, don't touch me. Unless they're like you're a cool snake, right? We gotta like get to know each other
how do you
first.
tell if it's cool?
Like Miss Thompson's snake. I was cool with her snake.
Those trees look so much better.
Cleo died.
Oh yeah, they're like oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor tree.
By the way. Yeah. That was the only snake.
Their
I've
tree
ever-
almost looks like
Not-
that.
That snake's like made me
The tree in green.
Tree in green kind of looks like hers. if
snakes,
hers
and then
didn't
like lizards are okay, but like frogs just like.
Are geckos okay? Or
Yeah. We just like frogs and I just don't mix. We just
All
don't get
right,
along.
so we got 6 trees up here. Looks good. And again, I know each person might have, that's actually good. If each person has something slightly different, it means you did your own. And again, I want to emphasize on this, there's no right or wrong answers. There is answers that are well supported and done correctly, right? And then there's ones that are not well supported and done incorrectly. So just because someone has something different than you doesn't mean that they're right or wrong. Just kind of look at the overall pattern here. That's why I think this kind of analysis is frustrating to some students because you're so used to like a math class where like there's an answer, right? It's a specific answer that I have to have. But no, this one's, it's all about coming up with, answering the question, which is, what is the presumed relationship among all these species? And then once we understand the relationship, which is the phylogenetics and the phylogeny of the groups, then we can come up maybe with some appropriate names to reflect that phylogeny, right? Wouldn't it be great if the taxonomy, the naming of things, actually reflected what their maybe relationships or presumed evolutionary history was? Okay, so a couple things about cladistics that you have to know. And this is, I'll bring this up again, but I do want you to know this this concept because let me get good colors here. We want to do in cladistics, we want to develop what's called monophyletic groupings. So cladistics is based on this premise that we are going to develop what's called a monophyletic group. What monophyletic means, mono means one, right? And phyletic means history or one kind of evolutionary history. So you basically want to have groups that have one common ancestor or have a single common ancestor. What this basically means is a single common ancestor for whatever group you have. So here's an example in cladistics. What that means is if I have a cluster of species, let's say 3 species here, and they have their own little relationships, they basically are connected by a single common ancestor. That's what monophyletic means. So this is monophyletic, meaning you have basically one origin. It's incorrect or not correct to have what's called polyphyletic. I'm not even going to write polyphyletic down, but polyphyletic means that I'm going to name a group that basically has 2 different ancestor lineages, right? This is basically kind of like a idea that we're going to name these 3 species, even though, like, we're going to put these 3 species in the same genus, even though they have different ancestors. And anyway, or we also don't want to have a group that we name and then leave one out, right? This happens quite a bit. In fact, this is what birds are. You know, the whole group of what we call aves, which is the birds, they're actually most closely related to the crocodilians and the reptiles. But we call birds something totally different. But we include turtles in with reptiles, which are totally different from lizards and snakes and crocodilians. So these kinds of classification groupings happen all the time, and it's the result of a legacy of hundreds of years of phonetic classification, where we classify organisms based on superficial similarities. I had you do your little hoop diagram last time to start with, and what you'll probably notice is your little hoop diagram, even though you might have had some species that came out together, probably like you might have like some of these species that are similar grouped to what your hoop diagram is. You'll see that there's actually some differences here because this was much more of an objective approach. So anyway, we don't want paraphyletic groupings, we don't want polyphyletic groupings, you want monophyletic groupings is kind of the idea here. So let's take a look here. We got these trees, they all look fine. And one thing we want to do, we want to see if we have any consistent pairings. Like, is there any species that seem to come out together again and again and again? It's like A and B. Yeah, you say that, but I'm seeing here, okay, A and B come out together here. This is good. Okay, so A and B are there. A and B come out together here with E. This group, A and B, don't come out together. This group, A and B, are together. This group are kind of together. So that's interesting, yeah. Sometimes A and B come up together, sometimes they don't. What about like G and D? G and D come out together here. G and D here, right? G and D, that's pretty good. This one, kind of. G and D are on different places there. So anyway, the idea is if we can see 2 species kind of coming out together independently, this is like almost like a replicated experiment. I mean, presumably all the universities you were worked independently and didn't share information, and you didn't talk about it ahead of time. So if we have essentially the same groupings up here independently, that's what we call in statistics a very robust answer. Like it's kind of obvious, or it is well supported that those species maybe are closely related. So that's ideal. So that's cool. I mean, whatever. So anyway, how you approach this is this. Like, okay, so each one of these letters represents a species. And you know that a species, and I'll remind you of this, a species is made up of a genus and species name together. So even though each letter would have to have its own species names, the species name, we could actually come up with shared genus names so that we can reflect relationships in the naming. So I recommend, like, for example, if you think A and B have some, shared similarities, A and B could share a same genus because it has a common ancestor here. And this is where you can make the judgment call here. Maybe we could include F in that same naming system. So, and I'm just gonna, this is all just giving you examples here. Maybe I would have one genus name that includes all three of those species, knowing that they have a common ancestry here. Here is the monophyletic group. This is a monophyly because we have a single common ancestor. So using that logic, I would then come up with a genus name for shared G and D, and using that logic, I would have to. And this is the tricky part that kind of fries brains. Is E would have to have its own genus, and C would have to have its own genus. The reason why I couldn't have C and E as a shared genus is because that's polyphyletic, right? It's kind of like our example there on the bottom, where you can't have, or paraphyletic. If I were to have C and E as a shared genus name, I'm leaving out this whole group that had a more recent common ancestor with E. Get it? It's like, I'm basically ignoring the fact that D, G, A, B, F have more in common with E than E has with C. So I need to basically treat these as their own genus names. But I can reflect, so get the idea is that maybe, this is genus 1, genus 2, genus 3, and this is genus 4. We can basically come up with 4 genus names that we can use to cluster together these species. And then what I could do is I could maybe have a family name that encompasses more of them. Like we also have to look at common ancestry. Here's a node that might be of interest, and here's a node that might be of interest. So maybe I make a family that includes all of these. I could make a family name that basically encompasses all of these genera, which is plural for genus, right? This is a family. And then species C would have to have its own family name. This is family 2. Remember, all you're on the hook for is coming up with species names, genus names, and family names. And this way I have 2 family names, 4 genus names, and then I have 7, I have to come up with 7 species names. But what that does basically is it helps to organize or name things so that we have some idea of the phylogeny, okay? In this group, I could do a similar thing, like that looks like a pretty good natural break, right? I mean, you're starting to look for kind of natural breaks here. This one's pretty easy. That would be a good genus name, okay? And then my next genus, I could pick G and D, but because there's a recent ancestry with C here, this would be a convenient cluster here grouping, is G, D, and C. But then I have to treat F as its own thing. So F would have its own genus name that only it has. It's called a monospecific genus. There. Now, as far as families go, this actually ends up being pretty easy. I could take the easy route and just say, well, they're all one family. I'm just going to come up with one family name. Even though we already know they're all the same order. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's groups called lumpers. Scientists that are lumpers tend to just kind of include everything in one name, so they can come up with fewer names. There are also scientists that are splitters that like to come up with more names. So a splitter might go, okay, well, this is a family, and then this would have to be its own family. So that would be a useful classification. And again, there's no right answers. If you do what you need to do, and also each table kind of seems to have a slightly different tree, so you might have different answers among your table. How about this one? This one looks pretty good. This is like we have here what might be like, this would be a natural genus, right? Yeah. A genus here. And then maybe maybe this would be a genus here, like this could be a genus, or, you know, depending on what your interpretations are, you might decide to treat C separately. All in all, it's all kind of your judgment call. There's a genus and there's a genus, and maybe C is its own genus on that one. And then maybe in this case, because of the way it's all set up, maybe this is all just one family. Or you know, maybe this is a family, and then C is included in the family here to try to communicate that C has more in common with this group. You get the idea? So, I mean, what you kind of get in the idea is there's several ways to kind of approach this. Whether you want to kind of be more refined and communicate all the individual relationships, or whether you just kind of want to lump everything together so that you can kind of come up with a group name. It all depends on your bend on it. Okay, this group here, this looks pretty good. I kind of like this cluster here, the D, A, and F. So maybe that would be like that would be a genus, and this would be a genus, right? But you can't make E, D, A, and F a genus together without including these, right? Because you've got to look at the monophyly, the single common ancestor. You have to kind of look at the common ancestor and go, okay, if I treat that as my monophyletic ancestor, hypothetical ancestor, I have to include all these in the same genus. So it's a question of, we either have to come up with 3 genus names here to encompass those 6 species, or we can have 1 genus name that encompasses all 6 species, which, although that's easy because we'll only come with 1 name, it doesn't really communicate much information, right? So it's all based on what your motivation is. Do you want to communicate information, or do you want an easy life, you know, and not have to come up with a name, you know? So you know, this would probably be the more appropriate way to communicate information on this one. And then, of course, in this case, C would have to have its own genus name, and this would be like a natural family break here, a family here, and then C would have to have its own family there. And the same thing here, you know, even though the colors are here, let me use a different color. Like this might be a good genus grouping. That's got a very similar color, isn't it? And this would be a good genus grouping, but then these two would have to have their own genus name on that grouping. And the way this kind of shakes out, it looks like the family grouping would probably most conveniently be kind of everything together. And then finally on this one, this is a nice grouping. A, F are closely related, but C is also in that same tree. So if we had a genus name, maybe that would be a good idea. And again, I can't have 1 genus name with C, G, E, and D because there's a common ancestry here with this group here, right? So I can't name these together and not include these. So I have to treat C, G, and E as a group, and then treat B as its own genus. And this would be an example where probably just 1 family name would be necessary because you have this triple branch tree here, okay? So that's the idea is, okay, so I gotta come up, I have to come up with a species. You have to have 7 species names. So let me go ahead and identify some of the problems I've seen in previous years on this assignment. There's 7 species, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. You don't have to name the volcano nymph of the other group if you don't want to. If you want to name it, great. But it's its own separate thing. It's outside this whole lineage. It's our outgroup. All you have to do basically is name these 7 species. So you have to have 7 different species names. Now there might be some combined genus names. How this works here is this. You can see like this is a list of plant species, and you can see that the species, the actual species, includes 2 different words. A genus name and a species name combined together. Don't worry about this afterwards. This is basically the person that originally named it. Usually along with the species, you would list the scientist that actually came up with the name. L means Linnaeus. So anyway, look, Linnaeus named pot cannabis sativa. Anyway, so okay, so so the species name, remember, is a genus and species combined. I was trying to look for an example that had combined genera, but this one doesn't. But it had a good species list. But what I want you to point out is that you can see, and I remember I told you that plants have ACA as their family name. Animals will use EDA as a family name. So maybe I'll pull up an animal list. What you can see is we're using that family name again and again and again for this grouping of species. So it's kind of basically in a species list showing the same relatedness or same association as we do with this kind of with this Venn diagram idea. So the reason why I'm using the Venn diagram here is to show you that it's the same kind of logic as you did with your phonetic analysis, but it's applied to, we're looking at the nodes or these hypothetical common ancestors as a kind of a guide for where our genus and species break off. Okay, got it? Okay, so let me go back to our, I want to go back to, I need to log into the web page here to show you what's going on. Oops. She asked me. Okay, let me just log in. I'm sorry, I should have had this logged in already. But let me just do this real quick. I want to show you what is due. Okay, go to our Zoology page here, and then courses, Zoology. Let's go ahead and view it as you view it. All right, so here's our assignment here. I want to be very clear about what is involved. Here. Gastropod shell phylogeny is the assignment. It's due on Monday, August 26th by midnight or so, just so we have it done by class on Tuesday. And if you click on that, it gives you specific instructions on what you need to have and the order you need to have it. So and you can fit this all onto one page if you're clever. If you need more than one page, make them all the same file. Don't just dump individual files into the canvas that I have to kind of open and scroll through. Combine it all into one file page, okay, like a PDF file that is all one document. And you can do that. You can put together scans or you'll figure it out. You're smart. So anyway, first off, I need to see a representation of your phonetic analysis. Whether that is a picture of your shells on the paper with circles around them, that's fine. Or it could just be your hand-drawn representation of the shell letters in the hoop diagram. But it's basically your hoop diagram that you made last time before we did any of this. I want the phonetic analysis because I want you to recognize that how classification has been done for hundreds of years before the 1950s is basically by phonetic analysis. It's by overall physical similarities and differences. Second, I want your cladistic analysis. So basically, I want this. I want you to put on there a representation of your tree, and it can be your tree, it can be the one that you came up with, it doesn't have to be the one that ended up on the board, but show a cladistic analysis. So essentially we're doing a compare and contrast of your phonetic analysis and your cladistic analysis together, and that's kind of the idea, is so you can see the differences right side by side. And then third I need is a taxonomy or a species list of all 7 of your species. So, and I feel like I've explained this and said it again and again, but on Tuesday when I look at these or whatever, people are gonna present you with 2 species, and I'm like, shell A, B, C, D were one, no. Each shell has its own species name, and you are going to make that up, whatever you want to do. But remember that when we look at a species name, and here, a species name is made up of a genus and a species. These are underlined because you're probably going to handwrite them. And even if you type them, just, underline is probably preferable. Italics is okay if they're typed or word processed. But the genus and species basically are underlined, and they should be underlined, and this is nitpicky, they should be underlined separately, not connected by it. They're basically two separate words. They should be underlined, or italicized if they're typed. You can't claim italics if they're handwritten. It's called cursive, right? Okay, the other rule here is that you need to be aware of is that the genus name, the first letter is uppercase, or cap, it's capitalized, caps. Capitalize the first letter of the genus, that means you can't write the genus in all caps, right? It's like basically the first letter has to be capitalized, and then the remaining letters of the genus are lowercase. And the reason I'm saying that is because for some reason people will give me all caps, whatever. And then the species name, the first letter is always lowercase. And this is a convention so you can recognize a genus and species. Genus name's capitalized, species name is lowercase. So you're going to have 7 unique species names, and you may only have 3 or 4 or 5 genus names, right? The family name, remember, these will have to end in ide. So the family name ends in IDAE, and that's how we know it's a family. So in animals and protists and fungi, I think in bacteria now, the ide ending is the universal ending for family. In plants, they're still using AC, which is cool, but that's a unique to plant thing. But ide is the family epithet for a family. So your species list should basically be like a list of 7 lines, 7 unique species, and you probably want to group together the ones that are in the same genus and the same family. So you're not listing these by the letter of the shell, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You're listing them basically by the families. So in this case, I might list shell A, B, F, G, D, E as one family, and then I would list A, B, F together as one genus, B and G together as another genus, and E is its own genus. And then species C is its own genus and its own family, right? And so have that kind of as your list idea. And that's kind of a convenient way to draw this because you're basically using one family name to describe all these species. Okay? So that's that is the assignment. I would also like you to include, so here's kind of an example of what a species list looks like. These are all in the kingdom Animalia. They're in the class Gastropoda, that's the given name, that's the name they are. They're all in the order Prosopranchia. And then you're gonna have a family name that has, several, 4 or 5, whatever, species in it. And another family that has maybe 1 or 2 species in it. But the species has to be written as the genus and species together. Okay, I would also like you to include your character states and your Wagner tree, or the exercise you did. Mostly just so I see kind of your raw data and your process for how this goes together. And do the best you can, but if you can get this all into one file, that just makes it a lot easier to go through and not have to go around.
Who does the family have to?
A couple suggestions for you on this, in this class and future classes. If you use your cell phone to take pictures of your papers and work and stuff, and I hate to be picky about this, but try to make it look like you photocopied it, right? It's really kind of unprofessional to have like the cell phone picture at an angle with your like Dutch Bros next to it, your coffee, or your keys, car keys and stuff. Like if you could, you can hold your cell phone like square over a page with good lighting and take a picture, and then you can crop out the tabletop or whatever the background is. And if it looks like it was photocopied, that's pro. If it looks like a lame selfie picture, not pro. Okay, so try to be as professional as possible. I understand it's so convenient now to be able to use your cell phone to take a picture of homework and turn it in. But don't be sloppy. Okay, sloppy is not cool in science. It's like you want to basically present your information as professional as possible. Right? You're Stanford after all, right? You want to go serious about it. So, okay, any questions on that? All right, so what I want to kind of finish with that. I know we're finishing way early today, but I want to be available here if you have any questions about species or how to name them. Take a few minutes to kind of come up with some species names, some genus names, some family names. I know the tendency is to want to bolt out the door and not think about this until 11:30 on Monday night. But maybe just kind of come up with some names, come up with some ideas, consensus.
Does the names like
and
have
then
to go
otherwise
what they look
you're free.
like?
You're free
Or
to
can
go.
it just be super
Okay.
random?
It can be whatever.
All right, so I'll come around and answer any
The sky
questions
is
you
the limit.
have. Good job. We actually finished this sooner. In years past, groups have still been coming up with characters on the second day and still working on their diagrams. You're all kind of got this done a lot faster. Maybe you guys are just smarter.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll come around and give you a hand coming up with
Progress.
Yeah.
So just as clarification, we're not submitting these, we're just submitting the page that we're creating from this information.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Sounds good. Yep. And so you're including that, which looks good. And this is your species list.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Okay,
be
good.
read.
Yeah, that's good. And then these are the same family. That's great. That's the idea. And so you could just scan that page
Right.
and turn that in along with your raw data for your.
It's just my nose.
So we're
also
turning in
scanning
both?
this.
So we're scanning everything?
You're turning in this and this and this.
Yeah.
Oh, so we are scanning all.
Yeah. So basically 3 pages all together. I want to see these
It's just
things
my notes.
Got it.
because just I want to see that you. It's kind of like showing your work in math.
Yeah. Okay.
This is the end result. This is great. Okay, so that's good. I'm not saying it's right. It just looks well supported.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
So you're right.
Okay.
How many,
So that's ideal. So question came up over here. How many pages do you need? Ultimately, like a minimum of 3, right? You have your page that you made, which with your nested diagram, your cladogram, and your species name list, right? And then I also want you to include your table of traits and your target diagram. That's kind of like in math where you have to show your work. I kind of want to see that you didn't just like take a picture of your buddy's page. You had your own process that you own learning.
I was just gonna ask if I could take a picture of this.
What? Wait, what?
No.
Anyway, so that looks good. But yeah, the actual results can just be one page. Yes.
Like right.
Okay, so that looks like really
so if I paste everything into a Google Doc and make it a PDF, surely it'll be fine.
There's also this.
He wants to see these, and then he wants to see the
I'm
sunrise.
just gonna send it. I know.
Annoying.
Long spiked. There's also this cam scanner app you can get on your phone, and it just turns pictures into PDFs.